Tonight is October the 13th, 2019. We try to make lots of little short videos about building these amplifiers. Thanks again. So very many thanks for all of you guys and ladies out there that comment and we discuss. But this is one I think I'm going to do. Not one I think I'm going to do first. I'm going to start drilling tonight. But I have questions like, well, where do you start? Well, this is where I start. Blank chassis. I'm going to use this fancy triad transformer. This is a S20 UTC transformer. I'm going to use the 1625s, which is the same thing as an 807. That's the ones that you look up. And I'm going to use this little Poseidon board. And I'm going to use a 5U4, which we can swap out for 5AR4 or whatever to raise the voltage a little bit if you want to. Part of the answers to where do you start is you've got to have the really hard parts to get, which is the iron. That's basically it right there. I mean, you can buy these things off of eBay all day long, and so 5U4s and chassis, and you can even get the 1625s. They're cheap. They're a military version, a 12-volt filament version of an 807 back from World War II era. But this is the way I lay it out. What I'm going to start doing here in a minute is I do the physical layout just, you know, just by looking at it and deciding what I want. And then, let me see if I can turn it here a little bit. Well, I guess I don't need to turn it. And then with a magic marker, see, I've still got all of the covering on it, which a lot of times I take the cover all the way off. I'll put a little mark right there. That'll be like the center of that one. This will be the center of that one. I want a hole right there and right there. And then I'm going to mark this one. The 4 mounting holes will be like right there, right there, right there, and as long as I didn't get it crooked, and I may have to do it over, but you know what I'm saying. Mark these holes, and I don't want to belabor this and draw it out too long, but this is the way I do it. This socket right here will be right there and right there, right in the middle of it. Same thing for marking these holes. I'll have to, when I pull it off, now that one doesn't want to mark because the thing isn't long enough, but you see what I'm getting at. So I mark it all, I measure it, I measure it, I measure it. And I just give myself plenty of time. Looks like I didn't even mark this one, but you know, you just gotta. And then of course I'm going to have to draw some lines over here, and I'm going to have to cut out a square hole, a rectangular hole for this. And I'll use a, you know, a T-square. I'll draw a straight line between here and here and here. So everything is nice and symmetrical. Okay, so where do you start? You start with making sure you got the very difficult parts to get to. And then you say, well, what kind of voltages do I need? What's the impedance, etc., etc. This is a 4K transformer, okay? And you start looking in the manuals. If you look for 1625, it'll just refer you to an 807. I think the lighting in here is good enough. You can see all this stuff. We run an ICAS, Intermediate Commercial and Amateur Service. CCS is Continuous Commercial Service. But we're going to run it like 750 volts on the plate. We're going to run it in triode, actually EUL, ultralinear. We're not going to put 300 volts on the screen. But anyway, it only takes negative 35 volts. I'll have to build a little bias supply in it. And it can put out as much as 120 watts if you're running it like a tetrode. Now, we're not going to be able to get 120 watts out of it in this triode configuration, but you can generally see, well, it's about 7,300 ohms for a plate load. If you lower the voltage there, it wants 69.46 for 500, which gives me 75 watts right there with just 500 volts, minus 30 volts bias. The reason that the bias is so important, I'll show you in a minute. And our transformer is 4,000. See, there's one down at 3,700, and it still does 55 watts. So it's a powerful little tube. Okay, And then you look up things like this, like the transformer that I have, which is an S20. And if we look at the parameters of an S40, see it's 525 or 425 to 0 to each side. So we got 525, 525. It's 1,050. They always rated it to a choke input filter under full load, so we're not going to get this. We got a 5-volt 3 amp for our 5U4. We got a 6-volt 3 amp and a 6-volt 3 amp, which we got to have. We got to have 12 volts. So we got a 12 volts. We also got 6 volts for the Poseidon board. We got 5 volts for our filament, and with the current 250 milliamps. It's perfect. It's like that transformer was designed for this amplifier. It won't be overloaded or underloaded. It will work. Okay, and then we start looking at the more other little things. Like I always use these types of AC receptacles because I just hate having to wrap a wire around it. That allows me to unplug it. Okay, so will I use that one or this one? This one's a plain one. This one's got actually a little filter in it. Doesn't really matter. Fuse holders. Let's look at this just for options. Standard fuse holder. Good idea, huh? Well, what about this? What about a 5 amp circuit breaker? Or what about this fancy dandy switch? That's a 3 amp. And it's an on-off switch with a circuit breaker in it. So if you overload it, it turns itself off. You know, maybe 2 of them. What should the current rating be on the input? Probably about 3 amps. Probably a 3 amp slow bow. So this one might be a little heavy. Might be a little high for 5. I don't know if I got a 3 amp or not. So you start looking at things like that. We've looked in the transmitting tube manual, and we know something about our tube. We know all we want to know about our tube. We know about our transformer. We know about our output. We can see that it'll fit. Are there going to be any surprises? Well, I don't think so. I do have to build a bias supply for it, but that'll just be another little bias supply underneath the chassis. And I'm going to use all new parts on this. I've already got all the parts for this. I've got another one already here built that I was tinkering with. I thought about using it, and I said, no, I'm just going to start all over. I got some more of these things around here somewhere. I'm not sure. But that's how you start. That's how I start. I'll drill all of the holes. This will take me a while. This will take me a day or two. Just almost just kind of playing with it. And looking at it over and over and over again, making sure the symmetry's right. This is the way I want to do it. And then I'll drill all the holes. I've got other holes to make, of course. Got to put the switch in it, and you know, the output. I got to have the input. I got to have the output. I'll probably have a gain pot on the input. You want to make sure that the gain pot on the input has a resistor in it. This one has a 1K. That probably is not sufficient. There is a very, very critical point if you put a pot in there, and you've got this right here running up and down a pot. When it's really, really close to 0, there is a critical spot there oftentimes where this thing will take off into sporadic oscillation. You don't want that. So I might change that to a 10K. But the rest of them, I'll make it just like that. Probably make one of these variable so I can balance the for dynamic balance. Here's for the cathode balance. Actually, for the drive, so that you're measuring the cathode current. So that's that's the measurements and the checkouts. But that's what it boils down to. So this thing could be alive in about a week, and that's that. Now for the AM transmitter, I'm going to take the thing off the stand here. I know a lot of you don't like to see it moving around. Can make you kind of dizzy after a while. I understand that. But what I'm going to do, I just can't build a little tiny AM transmitter. So I brought this guy over right here. Whoops, this big chassis or cabinet, and I ordered some some chassis for it. I ordered a 17 by 17, which will completely fill it. So what I'm actually planning on doing is using the cabinet that I built the 833 amplifier in. I've already pulled it out, and right now I'm using it with the 3400Z amp. I'm going to pull that one out, and that's where I'm going to build I'm going to use a 4-400. A 4-400 Class C amplifier that'll give me as much as a kilowatt of AM. And then I've got the power supply there. I've already got the bias supply there. I'll have to build a small screen supply for it, because you have to have all of the voltages for a Class C amplifier. You got to have bias, you got to have screen, you got to have plate. And then what I'm going to do is build the modulator separate, and this is going to be the modulator. I don't know if that's going to be its power supply components or not. I just love those transformers and I want to use them. But I'm going to have to build another 3,000 volt power supply, and I'm going to build a modulator that is capable of modulating a 1,000 watt AM transmitter. I want to be reasonable, and I wanted to go and use the 811s or the 813s. I was going to use the 4125 as the output, but I'm going to use a 4400 instead for the Class C amp. Pair of 813s. I still could go there maybe, but I'm thinking about using a pair of 4-400s. I'm talking about doing it right. And then of course we've got all these transformers over here. I won't be using this one anymore. I think I can get 300 watts out of that. I might. I don't know. This transformer right here is, even though I have two of them and I love them, they're beautiful, they don't give me the right voltages. So they may not end up getting used. And I probably won't use this either. I'll probably just make it a one band, and I'll wind the plate tank circuit out of 1/4 inch copper tubing. So there you go. That's the update. That's the plan. Having a lot of fun. I still want to build kind of a big universal power supply. Oh my goodness. And nothing broke. At least it didn't fall on my foot. I'm also working on some of these little microphones. Isn't that a beauty right there? I put a condenser type mic in there, and that works really nice. Oh, here's some stuff I got for Halloween. When's the last time you saw one of these? That's a flash bulb. Told my wife we'll have a lot of fun with that for Halloween. She loves Halloween. We decorate and just have a blast. We live in an old historic district, and I'm not exaggerating. We have as many as 2,000 kids show up on Halloween. It's unbelievable, but it's a lot of fun too. Well, anyway, that's it. I won't get into Halloween yet. This is the amplifier. It's going to be up and running, God willing, in about a week or so, and we'll be testing it. I have great hopes for it. I think it's going to perform exceptionally well. Stay safe. Thanks for watching and participating. I sure appreciate all the comments and the suggestions you ladies and gentlemen give me.